Hello, good morning, and good afternoon from ERPA. Thank you for setting aside 30 minutes to join our discussion on today's topic, adoption planning for Workday. So, ERPA, a little bit about us. We support customers throughout their entire life cycle on Workday. We serve both existing and new Workday customers with everything from implementation services, application support, warranted integrations. You might want to know more about that one. Named resources, private to public cloud, tenant migration, which all Workday customers are eventually going to have to do, and much, much more. But today is all about adoption planning. A couple of housekeeping matters before I introduce you to our world-class presenter, John, today. All of your microphones have been muted for this session, but the chat is available for you to engage with us. I'll be monitoring the chat for any questions or comments that you type in. Following today's discussion, a very brief 4-question survey is going to hit your inbox, and we would be ever grateful if you would take 45 seconds to complete it for us. And then finally, you always ask if the recording and the slide deck is going to be available. Yes, it is. We will email you in a few business days so that you can review the content, refresh your memory on what was said, or send it to someone else who might benefit from it. We have a very busy agenda. So let me share this agenda slide with you. I'm not going to read everything, but again, it's all about adoption planning. We have a number of dashboards we're going to be showing you and sharing. And then right in the middle, we've tucked in a demo. And I'm told by John, he is going to be able to respect everybody's time and get through all of this content in only 30 minutes. What's in store today? We've got a rich discussion by ERPA's own John Milkovich. He is the Senior Director of Workday Delivery here at ERPA. John, if you want to pop up your picture and then tell us a little bit about yourself and then share your great content with us.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. John Milkovich. I've been in the Workday ecosystem for 10 years now. I've been in many of the same shoes that folks on this call have been in. I've been an administrator on the customer side of Workday. I've gone through implementations from the customer side, and I've also been on the consulting side, which is where I'm at now. I've been at ERPA for 3 years, and I focus on Workday financials. But today, we're going to be talking about something that is functional area agnostic. And I'm going to go ahead and kill my camera to save some bandwidth. But today, we're going to be talking about adoption planning. And adoption planning is something that I don't see a lot of customers using at the moment. And so really, I just want to bring some awareness to this functionality and to give everyone on this call a little bit more of an understanding of what it is. This is functionality that is part of your subscription. It's a SKU that everybody who uses Workday has access to. So just a quick overview, and these are Workday's words. They describe this and describe the benefits a lot better than I could. So adoption is a functional area that consists of adoption planning, usage metrics, and adoption navigator products. Adoption planning uses data from usage metrics and the What's New in Workday report to help you understand how your organization uses Workday. It consists of a dashboard, tasks, and reports that can be configured to manage your overall adoption workflow. And this is recommended for access to the administrator security groups in your tenant. What are some of the benefits? You can manage your feature adoption process within Workday. So not in a worksheet or somewhere on SharePoint. This is all within Workday. You can create, prioritize, and categorize adoption items to help better manage the uptake of new features and enhancements. You can assign adoption items for testing and implementation. You can create a roadmap timeline to track deadlines for feature implementation by your teams. You can collaborate more efficiently with your teams on adoption, and you can view upcoming feature retirements. Before we get into the adoption planning dashboard and creating adoption items, I want to touch on the What's New in Workday report. If you've been working with Workday for a number of years or If you've been in the ecosystem a while, you're very familiar with this report already, I'm sure. But this is a key report that exists within your tenant. You just need access to it, which is within the Workday What's New domain. But this report compiles all of Workday's release notes by functional area and by release. And what I like about this report is it also includes community post links for each of these features as they become available. And it's just got a lot of great descriptions about the features and the functionality, what tenant it's deployed in, and when you can expect to see it in preview and in production. So if you're not already familiar with this report, I'd encourage you to become familiar with it. This is one of the key inputs into adoption planning is using this report and the functionality within this report. This is the adoption planning dashboard. This is a delivered dashboard that you just need to configure and turn on and enable security for. This dashboard consists of 5 worklets: retiring features, my assigned adoption items, which we'll get into adoption items here in a bit, supplementing what's new in the last 7 days, and what's new in the last 6 months. And then you can also see there are some additional reports and dashboards and tasks over here to the right. So this is the delivered adoption planning dashboard. And of course, you can customize this dashboard. You can add tabs, you can add reports, you can change reports. This is just what's delivered. So if we look at each of these reports in a bit more detail, first we've got the retiring features report. And this was actually delivered last year, 2023 R2. Great report. It displays retired features by product, when those features are planned to be retired. So you can see retiring in 0 to 6 months, retiring 7 to 12 months, 13 to 18 months. Features that Workday is planning on retiring, but they don't have a retirement date yet, so it's TBD. This is something as administrators you must be aware of. You need to know when Workday is going to be retiring features because they could obviously impact the way your organization uses Workday. So this is a really great report and a report I would encourage you to look at frequently and make sure you're on top of this. The next report, My Assigned Adoption Items, we'll go through adoption items in a moment, but this report just shows the adoption items that you're assigned to so that you can keep those front and center when you are reviewing this adoption planning dashboard. Next, we've got supplementing what's new. This just has links and descriptions of key Workday community resources, service update notes, release preparation center, feature release guidebook, all key resources within community as you prepare for the biannual Workday releases. Last, we've got these 2 reports, what's new in the last 7 days and what's new in the last 6 months. So yes, Workday has 2 releases each year, but they continue to release features and functionality throughout the year, whether it's because they had to delay something as part of an R1 or R2 release, or sometimes they just release features outside of those dates. So this report keeps those items front and center, this what's new in the last 7 days. Workday encourages you to review the what's new in Workday report weekly because they're updating it weekly. This report kind of simplifies that for you. It shows you, what exactly Workday has added in the last 7 days to that report. What's great about this report, the what's new in the last 7 days, is it's only showing you functional areas that are enabled in your tenant. Whereas the what's new in the last 6 months report shows you what's new for every functional area in your tenant. So the beauty of these reports, you can copy these reports. So you can copy that what's new in the last 6 months report and check the prompt box to only show you functional areas that are included or that have been enabled in your tenant So it's a little bit more tailored to how your organization uses Workday. Now we've got a menu and some additional reports and dashboards that I want to cover. So this menu is in the adoption planning dashboard. And I really want to focus on creating adoption items. From this menu, there are a couple ways to create an adoption item. It's this task, create adoption item. There's also what's new item actions. Now, what exactly are adoption items? They are a way to plan short-term or long-term feature adoptions. And like I said, you can create these adoption items from here. You can also create an adoption item directly from the What's New report in Workday. So this is what it looks like when I select create adoption item. You can see there are a number of fields here under item. You can see there are a number of fields under priority evaluation. We've got a roadmap section down here. There's a notes section that got kind of cut off down here. But there's a, a number of fields here that you can use as you create an adoption item. One of the key things I want to call out here, though, is status. There are two main classifications of statuses when you're creating adoption items. You've got backlog and you've got roadmap. So Workday has these delivered backlog statuses: in backlog, in review, prioritize, duplicate, will not do. And then there are three roadmap statuses: on roadmap, deferred, completed. The key distinction here, as I'll show you on the next slide, is when something is classified as a roadmap status item, you have to assign it to a person. You have to put plan start and end dates. It kind of makes it a more formal type mini project almost, where you've got responsibility assigned to somebody. You've got those start and end dates. So though when you select a status that is classified as a roadmap status, you'll see that these are now required fields. I must assign an individual to this adoption item, and I must put a start and end date. And you can create your own statuses. You'll have to classify them as a backlog status or a roadmap status. But the key thing to think about this here is, as you're evaluating features, new features in Workday, if you identify something that looks interesting, you can mark that what's new feature as a backlog item or something you want to look at eventually in more detail. And then when the time comes where you actually want to go implement that feature, you can move it to a roadmap status. So I'm going to hop in the tenant here, and I'm going to show you what the adoption planning dashboard kind of looks like live. This just has all of the reports in the menu that we already covered. But what I want to show you, I am logged in as myself here, and we can see I've got a couple adoption items assigned, and one of them is called email receipts for expenses. This is a new feature type. I've also got a type of project, and this one's called capital projects. Now, this project adoption item isn't linked to any what's new items. You don't have to link a what's new item to an adoption item. You can really create these however you'd like, but you certainly do have the ability to link these to what's new items. So if I go in here, actually, I'm going to look at the what's new in the last 7 days report. So if I drill down on common financial management, if I look at this feature here, I expand this a bit, you'll see these are all the fields that are available in that what's new in Workday report. And if I click on the related actions next to this feature, you'll see I have the option to create an adoption item from this feature. I can also link this to an existing adoption item. But if I just select create adoption item from this feature, you'll see it brings in the name of that feature, it brings in the type, it automatically puts it in backlog, adds the functional area. It shows that I requested it since I created it. The setup effort you'll see came from that what's new item. It's tied to this Workday release. So this particular item, we know it came out in the last 7 days. It was actually released on 7/6, so last week. You'll see it's tagged in this what's new reference here, and it brings in the notes from that item as well. Of course, I can go in here and start updating some of these other fields: urgency, value, work effort, business risk, impact, etc. But this is a great way to create an adoption item just off of that what's new report, or these reports that are built off of that what's new report. Another thing I want to call out here, so if you don't want to create these adoption items from the what's new report, line by line, you have the option to use what's new item actions. So when I select this, I can select a functional area. So I'll just select expenses, and then I'll look at what has come out in the last 6 months by default here. And I can see 13 items here. And I can go through and I can say, okay, I want to select this, 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 this. And if I keep scrolling down, you can see I've got some actions here. I can link this group of items to an existing adoption item. I can create an adoption item for each of these, or I can create an adoption item for this entire group. So if I select create adoption item for group and hit OK here, you'll see it automatically brings all 4 of these into this adoption item. Now it doesn't create the name since I've got 4 of them in here, and it doesn't fill out some of the other fields here like functional area. But this is just a way to show you that, if you want to go through everything what's new and you want to group them, this is a way to do that. I'm just going to hit cancel here real quick and go back to my adoption planning dashboard. One last thing I wanted to point out about the adoption item. So you'll see I have this item for email receipt for expenses. This is linked to a few what's new items. Now, if I go to my what's new Workday report and I search for expenses, and I want to look at what's come out this year, so I can see these 16 items that have been released. And if I keep scrolling all the way to the right, you can see which features are already linked to adoption items. And I can drill down on this adoption item from here. So, hypothetically, if you wanted to go through the what's new in Workday report, you could create adoption items for each of these features. You could tag them as backlog items, as items that you do not want to implement, based on your business needs. But basically, you could create adoption items for every row in this report and kind of indicate, okay, this is something we're not going to use. We don't think we'll ever use. This is something we're interested in, but maybe don't want to put it on our roadmap quite yet. Or you can indicate it's something that you do want to turn on and you do want to put on your roadmap. But it's really nice that this report includes those adoption items within the report. If I go back to the adoption planning dashboard here, I want to point out one more report that exists within the adoption items section here, and it's View Adoption Roadmap Timeline. When I select this and I enter a date, I'll just use today, you'll see I can group this by a few different fields: assigned to, functional area, roadmap category, type. If I select assign to and I hit OK, this gives me a nice Gantt chart type view of all of the adoption items and who they're assigned to. And you can see by default it's showing me for the year, but I can select quarter, month, week, day, 4 days. So if I select quarter, it gives me this nice zoomed in view. And I can see what my colleague Alex is working on, what adoption items are on my roadmap. From this report, I can also just click on these items and I can update them directly in here. So if I need to extend the end date, I can do that from here. If this is no longer something that we're going to be working on, I can move it to my backlog, or I can just delete it from here as well. So this is a really handy report because you can take those actions directly from the report and you just get this nice view of all of the adoption items that you and your team are working on. All right, I'm going to go back into our deck here. I talked about the timeline already, so I'm going to kind of skip over this. A couple other things I want to point out. There are two dashboards, usage metrics dashboard, end user adoption dashboard, that are part of the adoption dashboard. Um, you do need to enable some additional security to be able to view these dashboards, but by default, they are included in here in the adoption planning dashboard if you have the access. So I just want to touch on these really quickly. First, the usage metrics dashboard, really cool dashboard. This has a couple of reports that I want to highlight. These HR and pay functionality usage at month end and financials functionality usage at month end. So when you set up this usage metrics, Workday takes a snapshot at month end about what you're using in the system, how many workers you have, uh, how many data records are created. But when it comes to this financials functionality, HR and pay functionality usage, this is really powerful. You can see exactly what percentage of these functional areas you are currently using in your tenant. And more importantly, you can drill down on this and you can see exactly what you're using and what you're not using. So for example, expenses, I can see that we're using maybe 80% of the expenses functionality. If I were to drill in there, I would see that we aren't currently using spend authorization, so functionality that's part of expenses. As an organization, we decided not to use that functionality, and I don't think we're ever going to use it. So, we're never going to be 100% functionality usage here of expenses, but that's okay. But this just gives you a quick high level overview of what you're using and what you're not using by functional area. When we work with customers, especially customers that have just gone through an accelerated launch deployment, oftentimes they know that they haven't implemented everything that Workday has to offer in each of these functional areas. So one of the questions we often get is, hey, can you tell me what I'm not using? I know Workday can do so much more, but what else can it do? Can you give me some insight there? This is a really great report to direct them to because they can see at a high level what they're not using. And then, of course, we are a services partner. We're happy to help implement anything that they'd like to turn on. There's also some worker/user data and business data links to reports in here. These transaction trends reports are very cool, and I'd encourage you to look at those. Just some really interesting trending data for each of the areas included there. So again, this is a dashboard within the adoption planning dashboard. You can access this separately. You don't have to access it through the adoption planning dashboard, but this is just a really great dashboard to have as a tool for administrators. The next dashboard that's linked within the adoption planning dashboard is end user adoption. This one, not quite as many reports. There's a business process initiation trends report and a unique sign-ons by device trends report down here that got cut off. This just shows you the number of business processes initiated, how many processes have been initiated using employee self-service, manager self-service. So you can see we in this tenant, there have been no manager self-service BPs initiated. So that might tell you, okay, maybe that's something we need to work on. There's also links to sign-ons by device and mobile app usage. Again, just really great data points where you can see exactly how users are engaging with Workday. 3 years ago, when we started the Workday practice at ERPA, we wanted to come up with a way to help customers manage their biannual releases. And this is one of the ways that we did that. We created this update release dashboard. And you can see there are multiple tabs in here, but the first tab is this adoption planning dashboard. And this has a feature release checklist with links to community that can help you prepare leading up to the biannual releases. We've also included links to some key audit reports within Workday and descriptions there. And you'll see we broke out, we've got separate tabs for kind of each of the high level products in Workday: HCM, payroll time tracking, financials, integrations, cross application slash PEX. We're going to add a student tab here because we are also a student partner now. But what we did was we created reports based off of that what's new report data source and just separated the items by these different areas. With each release, each of our teams go through all of the update features and we highlight through a webinar our top features. So the features we think are going to have the most impact on organizations or that will bring the most value to organizations. And we highlight those within reports in each of these tabs. So we go in and update the reports to highlight those features that we think are the most impactful. Lastly, additional resources. So if you're interested in learning more about adoption planning, there's a free course that's about 8 minutes long, gives a really good high-level overview, talks about the domains that you need to enable to turn this functionality on. Uh, there's also documentation on usage metrics, enabling that functionality and the adoption planning functionality. Like I said, extremely straightforward to turn on and begin using this functionality. There's also a link to another webinar that a couple of customers talk about how they use the adoption planning product and how they use adoption planning and what their overall process is. This is about an hour, and I'd encourage you to take a look at that if you're interested in hearing how some customers use this functionality. There's a user group as well. I'd encourage you to join that user group within community if you're interested in this functionality and you turn it on and there's certain things that you wish Workday would do with this functionality, I'd encourage you to look at some of the brainstorms that are out there because there are quite a few. Vote on those brainstorms, create new brainstorms, help Workday enhance this functionality. And lastly, within Customer Central, there are 9 additional reports that help you slice and dice your adoption items into different views. So how many adoption items have been requested by an individual, how many are assigned to a certain individual, how many adoption items by functional area are there. So there's 9 reports that you can easily move over from Customer Central into your tenant to give you those additional views. And then there's an a reporting adoption metrics dashboard that has a lot of great information about how your users are using reports, what reports they're running, what dashboards they're running, report performance metrics. This is a great dashboard that focuses on reports. And then there's an additional user adoption metrics dashboard that you can bring in that has multiple tabs, gives you a lot of great information about user adoption metrics. So with that, I'll wrap up. Thank you for your time here. Hope you've learned something about adoption, and I'd encourage you to explore this functionality further. And of course, if you have any questions, please reach out. We'd be happy to work with you on enabling this. And Jeff, if you want to wrap us up.
Yeah, John, hey, I did have one question that came in. I'd like to toss it over to you, see if we can answer this generally. So you showed the dashboard that shows when Workday retires a function. The question that came in is, how can a person determine what downstream functionality goes away when Workday retires a function? Is that something you can answer generally, or does it depend on the function?
Yeah, I mean, there's Workday definitely publishes a ton of information when they're going to retire a feature on community. So it's not just, you're going to see this in the report in the adoption planning dashboard. You're going to be triggered to go into community and learn more about what they're retiring, and it will talk about some of those downstream impacts. So yeah, definitely with every retiring feature, there's going to be additional documentation on community so you can learn more about it.
So you use that dashboard to learn that a feature is being retired, but then that alerts you that more digging is probably required, and Workday publishes tons of information for
Yes,
awareness.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's a
Okay.
great question, though.
It is. Well, awesome, John. Great job. Thank you so much. Thanks to all of you who joined us today. We hope you found the discussion helpful. We got a lot of claps and stuff and of emojis there, John. So people were enjoying your content.
Awesome.
Again, you'll receive an email in a few days with links to the recording and the slides. You'll receive an email survey right after the conclusion of the webinar. We'd be grateful if you would take just a moment to fill out those 4 questions. That's it for now. John mentioned a lot about the release. The next release is coming up in 2 months, and 2 weeks prior to that release, ERPA will be hosting a educational webinar that John alluded to. Last time we did this, we had nearly 400 of you who registered for our webinar. So look for that email invitation to join that upcoming webinar. That's it for now. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks again, John.
Thank you.